Hello everyone and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'd like to welcome everyone, and we've got people from around Australia here. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay. I just having a few technical problems here at the moment. Just bear with me for 1 second. That's probably better. Hello all, welcome Australia. I am really excited to see you all here today. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited about sharing some ideas and strategies with you all. We have, as I said, people from around Australia, so it's quite exciting, but hopefully we get you thinking a little bit differently today. You can ask questions in the chat box, and please stick around till the end because I've put together some little bonus offers which hopefully is just going to provide a heap of value and make it worthwhile for you to stick around. But I thought I'd start off with a quick little story about me. I won't bore you to death, but I've been passionate about property since the age of about 20, following my old pops around the construction sites, and I desperately wanted to know about money. So much so that at the age of 20, I went to work for one of the wealthiest men in the area. So it happens he wasn't too keen to share any secrets about money. So I decided to go back to school, and the rest is history, where I did my accounting, my financial planning, my real estate. All I wanted to know was about money. Now, you might say, so what? And you're probably right, because all those years of schooling taught me probably zip about money. So, I guess where I learnt my trade was over the last 29 years. I sat in front of thousands of people, business people, investors, and you get to know what works and you get to know what doesn't work. The wealthy people tend to leave clues, and I think that's really important. So, I was lucky enough that I decided to copy a few of those people, and I had a bit of a go myself and made some mistakes. I think it's important to make mistakes, as long as you fail responsibly. That's the whole thing, and it's always learning. It's only a mistake if you do it twice. But also I say to my kids, if you're not willing to make mistakes, you're not willing to learn. So isn't that so true? And I take a bit of an aim, ready, fire approach to life. But I started as a young 29-year-old in my business, and I had a very ambitious goal about diversifying away from my business. And basically, over the last 29 years, I have managed to accumulate a property portfolio of around 50 odd properties and rental of around $1 million. Now, I'm not telling you that to impress you, but rather to impress on you that it's a simple formula to follow. I had no intention of being an investor. Like everyone, I worked hard, and I realized that, as an accountant, you sell 6 minutes. I thought, well, that's not going to last for very long, so I better look at diversifying. So when I say that, I'm not trying to impress you, but rather impress on you the importance of following a formula. And the rules of money I've learned so much over the years, sitting in front of people, and I haven't learnt it from reading books or listening to audios. I also learnt it from having a go, and I think that's really important, to have a go. You can't sit on the sidelines. The old Aussie ways, have a go, mate, and that's what I've tried to do from day one. Also, with those rules, I've helped countless hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, create some serious wealth over the years. I'm very proud to do that, and that's what I love doing. So hopefully I can share some of those rules and ideas with you today, stuff that I've learnt, and hopefully you can take on some of that and better your wealth. Our goal is really to give you a bit of insight and clarity on how to build wealth. That's the reality. And over the years, as I say, it's not about helping people to retirement. It's about helping them to a better lifestyle, freedom, choice, all those things that come with money. So let's get started. I guess I'll start with the big idea and the rules of money. If you see these little ROMs on the side, It's just my rules of money that I've learned. And rule number one is you don't have to be wealthy to invest, but you do have to invest to be wealthy. And I think that's so true, isn't it? You have to invest to be wealthy. That's the old cliche. Because money at the end of the day is an idea, and the way we think about money is an idea. You know, the way we go about our daily routine, how we go about our business, it's all about our mindset and how we think about money. And let me tell you, over the years, I've seen some bloody funny ideas about money. But everyone has money problems. You know, some people have too much money and they don't know what to do with it. Other people don't have enough. So there's no problem with, having money problems, because everyone has money problems. So it's probably more the fact, if you've got money problems, it's not the fact that you don't understand money, or you don't come from money, or money is the root of all evil. It's probably the fact that you're spending more than what you earn, I would expect. One thing for sure, I know that you have to cross over to the left side of the court, if you like, if you want to experience wealth. And that means you have to be an investor to experience wealth. You can't be, for example, a self-employed person and just slog away. You can't be a business owner and just slog away. You can't be an employee and just slog away. You also must be an investor. That's my opinion. And really, at the end of the day, it's about using your knowledge and working out the recipe to build wealth. You know what? Money doesn't solve all problems. We know that's true, but at least you arrive to your problems in style. And it's also true that, you know, if you're not so good in the good looks department, money just makes you look that little bit more attractive, doesn't it? So let's put our hands up if you want to make some money faster, smarter, and easier. You can put it in the chat box there. Who wants to make money smarter, faster, and easier? Okay, let's go. I can see a few coming through there. But let me say this to you. Rule of money number 2, saving money is risky. You might say, what's going on? I save money and I keep it in the bank and it's nice and safe and I sleep like a baby. That might be true. But let me tell you, the only one who's making the money is the bank, of course, because you know what they do? They take the money and they loan it to investors. So why not just cut out the middleman and go straight to investing? Let's talk about the situation where we are right now. We're all talking about the cost of living. Inflation's high. Cost of living's gone through the roof. Materials and building, everyone's gorging there at the moment. And the governments say that they want to get inflation down, but I don't know so much. You see, the government in Australia has about $1 trillion worth of debt. And by printing money, they devalue that debt, so it's easier to pay back. So they have this policy of printing money, which releases money out to the economy. People have too much money and they spend on goods, which create inflation. And on the other side, they use interest policy as a bit of a handbrake. But, you know, I feel that inflation's probably good for them and not so good for us. When you realise what's going on in the economy, that there's too many dollars chasing too few goods and inflation will keep going up, understand that inflation is going to devalue your dollars. And what used to work the old days, we'll call them the old days, the old industrial age, doesn't work in the information age. You know, we now have these little things in our hand that tell us everything that we need to know, and have probably more power than what when man went to the moon back in '69. It's a very fast world, and the industrial age of, get a good education, get a job, get a mortgage and work for 30 years, that doesn't work anymore. And I think it's really important to understand that. It doesn't work because people try to save money, and by the time you give half to the tax man and then the other half to inflation, you're going backwards at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And even so, with the tax rate that they levy on us, which is 49%, if you go out and get a second job, or you work harder, or you're smarter than the next person, or whatever the case may be, every second day you've got to hand it over to the tax man. So it doesn't work. So we've got to change it up a little bit. You're working against the system. And the trouble is, working against the Australian tax system, with one of the highest tax countries in the world, it doesn't work. So trying to save money, good luck with that. I wish you all the best. But prices are going up faster than wages. And there's a little graph here. So you can see over the last, so that's probably when I started talking about property, 2000 it was. Property prices have tripled, whereas wages are not even doubled over that time. So we're up against it. And as I say, with the third highest debt per capita in the world, and most of that is bad debt. So the stats for Australia are not so good, and the stats for retirement in a lucky country are not good either, because we have 54% of our population that seek retirement funding when they get to the retirement age, 54%, and 5% of Australians, only 5% will retire wealthy, which is over 100K per year with an asset base of over $1 million. That's the guidelines. So let me say that again. An asset base of $1 million plus your residence and 100,000 per year income, 5% of Australians. The minimum guideline is not even better. So the minimum guidelines for Australia is you need at least 5 times your salary by the age of 55. That's a guideline only. So there's a real gap as a financial planner. When people come to us and they say they want to retire, 9 times out of 10 we see a serious gap in terms of what they need to what they want. A good little exercise is to take your what your net income is at the moment and divide it by 1.3, and that'll give you how much capital you probably need to retire, because you'll have more time in retirement, so you'll be spending money. We won't be working hopefully 40 hours a week. So it's fair to say you need to think differently, and you need to change it up in this new world. The old thinking won't work, and if you're slogging away, and let me tell you, I see a lot of people in the grind. I see a lot of people not in business but in busyness. So this is why I love talking about this and shaking it up a little bit. But if you feel that that's the way to go, good luck with that. I wish you all the best. So my rule of money number 2, therefore, is we must take risk. The biggest risk in life is not taking a risk. And again, it's really clear to me that you have to get out of your comfort zone and take a risk to get anywhere. But I'm not talking about retirement here. I'm talking about good quality of life. I'm talking about freedom and choice and setting some inspiring goals along the journey, not just waiting to, that day of retirement. Reward for effort, all that stuff whilst you're in business. And you've got to remember, a lot of the people I deal with are business people. So I remind them of that. And we say to them, look, we want to replace your income in your business with passive investments if we can. That's what I think would be a nice goal. So I sort of gently place that little goal into their head and try and brainwash them along the way. But, I still see a lot of people slogging away with no improvements. So I've got a bit of work to do. So why is that? Can you type in there why you think a lot of people don't take that first step of risk? What is it? Why are they... because I see a lot of people sitting on the sidelines with the fear of and probably that's one of the reasons, it's that little voice. But there's a lot of other reasons. There's been stats. Just type them into the little chat box there, if you can. So you can imagine I've heard every silly excuse in the world that keeps people on struggle street. Even one, and this is a true story. We took a fellow, it was about the 3rd or 4th visit to property, and a black cat ran out of the garage, and he said, no, that's a bad omen. And to this day, it's a true story. He has not bought property, but unfortunately, he's getting to that retirement end of the trip. So I've seen every weakest excuse and probably logical reason in their mind why not to take that risk. And I can see a few of those things coming through. Yeah, a lot of people have fear of failure. We have, yep, I can understand that. Yeah, fear of risk, can't get the money. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons. But I hope that the message is clear that we have to get you into some sort of, and we had a disclaimer at the front because I don't know everyone's circumstance, but we have to, generally I'm talking about, we have to get people into that groove of taking the risk, because otherwise everything's working against us and you're stuck on the treadmill or the rat race, as they call it. But if you're waiting for property to get cheaper, that's one of the reasons that I see there, waiting for property to get cheaper. Well, I'm sorry to say that's not going to happen. The unfortunate news that it's not going to get any easier. As I said before, the government's got $1 trillion worth of debt and continues to print money. It's not the fact that property's going up. It's the fact that our value of our money is going down because it causes inflation, and also the immigration levels, and which I'll talk about later. Okay, so what I've tried to do, we've got 6 simple steps. We've got limited time here, and I'm very respectful of your time tonight. 6 simple steps that I've used in my journey to create $1 million portfolio, and I've called it a $1 million multiplier because that's what I've done. I didn't know what I was doing at the start, but luckily as an accountant I understood numbers, so the first thing I tried to do was understand the numbers. So I'm going to give you my recipe here, hopefully, to create wealth. Please ask questions along the way. To create wealth, cash flow and freedom. So the first one, as I said, I understood the numbers, and I think to a certain degree you have to become a little bit savvy. You have to, I'm not saying you have to be an accountant or a bookkeeper or whatever, but you have to understand the basics. Unfortunately, or I'm being a bit cheeky, but we also have to respect the bankers, because an investor can't get anywhere without a banker. And the third one I've already mentioned, and that's to pay yourself first. Okay, but before I get on to that, I want to talk about blueprint. Know yourself. It's important to understand your blueprint, because we all have this blueprint. You know, it could be from, you get advice from your friends or your family or your parents, and they tell you that investing's risky, or so you've got to be aware of how you're thinking and how you're thinking about money. I think that's the first thing. If you're thinking like an investor, you've got to understand how they think. Understand where you're at the moment, where you want to be. I'm sure no one wants to stay on struggle street. I would expect that everyone wants to be prosperity town, but you really have to say to yourself where you want to be. Do you want to be, wealthy or comfortable, or you happy, living week by week, whatever it is, and everyone's different, and there's no right or wrong here. But please write it down. Where do you want to be? By the time you hang up your boots, where do you want to be, or where do you want to be along the way, or in 3 years? Please write it down now. See, we do get a lot of advice from our family and friends, and when I listen to a lot of people, I hear, investing's risky, I don't take risks, I'm not smart enough, I'm not educated enough, I'm not good with money, I didn't come from money, money is the root of all evil. I've heard it all, okay? It's like driving a Ferrari with a handbrake on. It really is, because you are putting yourself out of the game. Now, let me just say to you, there is different mindsets. For example, we all hear of keeping up with the Joneses. People come in and they've got the glitzy glamour look and the nice car and the nice house. But as a financial planner, we can look at that and in 5 minutes tell you that in a lot of cases it's just glitz and glamour. And a lot of these, we'll call them keeping up with the Joneses, they don't really understand money. They look glitz and glamour on the surface, but you scratch the surface and there's nothing there. And they want that instant gratification. Give it to me, I need it now, 36 months interest-free, no deposit down, I need it now. So they can't delay that instant gratification. And they're always looking for that ripper deal, which is okay. But their ripper deals are ripper deals to lose money. You get it? Not ripper deals to make money. Whereas the wealthy look for ripper deals to make money. They're always looking for bargains, They still like buying their toys, by the way, as you can see up on the screen. They just buy, they buy an asset to pay for the toy, okay? They buy an asset to pay for the toy. Whereas we'll call it middle class thinking, let's just go and buy the toy. Let's go and have some fun, yeah? So it's important to understand that. You know, my children, I've got my little boy who's, you know, got curly hair, he's got blue eyes, he loves saving. My little girl's the exact opposite. She's got straight hair, brown eyes, and she loves spending. I can only put it down to the little girl takes after the mother. I'm not sure, but hopefully this is not being recorded. But look, everyone has a blueprint, and I try and change their blueprint. When I give them money, I say, how much do you spend? Oh, Dad, I'll put away 30%. Yep, that's okay. So I'm happy to try and brainwash people and change their blueprint. So if you're not good with money, understand that you can change your blueprint. And it's really important. The way you think about money is crucial. And as I said before, everyone has money problems. The good news is that everyone can learn about money, but you can't learn from reading a book or listening to an audible, or you've got to have a go. Have a go, fail responsibly. Don't put the kids' education fund on it. Fail responsibly. So what happens, I'll see if I can just do a little pen here. I'm not here to give you an accounting class, but obviously everyone knows income comes in and then you've got a choice where it goes. You know, in a lot of cases, people live week by week and it goes straight to expenses. Okay, so that's a mentality, that's a plan, I guess. Then other people, and we'll call them the Joneses again, I'm picking on the Joneses, the income comes in and goes straight to the liabilities account where they're buying toys or paying for houses or whatever the case may be. So, you know, at the end of the day, all their income is being used to pay for liabilities, yeah? Whereas the wealthy way of thinking is get the income to the profit and let's buy some cash flow assets, cash flow appreciating assets that will create more money for us, okay? And you get this cycle effect. You get it? It's pretty simple. That's we'll call it your report card, like your report card from school. Because as I said, in 5 minutes, we can tell whether someone understands money or not. And your banker, and I said before, you have to be nice to your banker. Every successful investor needs a good banker on their side. Without a banker, you're hamstrung. So you do have to confront the numbers. It's like me coming back from holidays and getting on the scales. You know, you've got to confront the numbers. You mightn't like them. But if you think like an investor, you also got to think like a banker, because without the bankers, we can't do much. Now, a banker looks at three things. We'll cover this a little bit later. They look at three things. Your serviceability. So that's where cash flow is really important. Serviceability. Then they look at collateral, and then they look at your history. In that order. I thought it was collateral. It's not. You know, you go there with a nice property and you say, can I have a loan? They say, no, you've got no income. Yeah. But your report card, sorry, I'll jump one there. Your report card, as I say, is your balance sheet. And it's like your report card from school. So where's your report card at? Do you have enough cash flow, free cash flow? Are you relying on your business? Have you got money put aside as a deposit? Can you unlock equity? You know, are you investing in liabilities or are you investing in depreciating assets? We have a lot of companies that turn over millions and millions of dollars, but it all goes back into the business. So let's get your finances in order. That's the first thing. You've got to think like an investor, okay? That's rule of money number 2. Thinking of as an investor, you need to pay yourself first. Now, I just want to show you here. I see this all the time. Very good businesses, the money comes in and the money goes back into the business to buy more business assets, usually depreciating assets, okay? And I try to say to them, the business, the company, whatever, is not you. It's not you. Your wealth is over here. This is mum and dad over here, okay? So we need to take money out of the business, which the government's made it harder to do now. We need to park it in a halfway account, which I call the me account. Me stands for my equity. it still belongs to the company. If we have to put it back, we can put it back. But you have to pay yourself first, because most business owners sit like the dog at the end of the table waiting for the crumbs to fall off the table. You know, I've got to pay wages and I've got to pay this and I've got to pay that. I know you won't not pay those things, but if you have a good month, just take an amount across to your me account, still belongs to your company, and then, you know what, I don't know why it works. It's like switching that light switch on. All of a sudden there'll be money sitting aside there, and we can do some exciting things. We can, you know, put it into super, pay down debt, buy some property, buy some blue chip shares, whatever. And this is where you get this appreciating cash flow cycle going, okay? But over here, your company is not you. All right, so it's really important not to confuse that. Your business is really a tool to build wealth for you. That's how I see it. And as I said before, I see a lot of people not in business, but in busyness. And they're just like the little mouse on the treadmill chasing the cheese, okay? You know, if you ever had lucky enough to have cash in your wallet and you turn up on the Monday after being away and you think, what the hell, where did that all go? It's the same sort of, you know, usually you open up the wallet and the moth flies out. It's the same old thing in business. You know, if you don't take your money first, and I'm saying at least 10 to 30% of your profits, move it to your me account. If you have a good month, move 10%. You know, you're a gun if you can move 30%. Move it, move it. If you're an employee, it's your net income. Very simple. You can't spend everything you earn. Move it. And it gives you an opportunity at some point. It's quite exciting when I speak to people who've had no income, and we play this little game because that's all it is. And all of a sudden, one this week, he had $1 million in his me account. And I thought, well, that's fantastic. Big problem to have. What are we going to do with the $1 million? Exciting problem. So don't tell me what you make. It doesn't impress me. Tell me what you keep, and don't even tell me what you keep. Tell me what you do with it. They're the real things. So my question to you tonight is, are you committed enough to delay the instant gratification? And, you know, write it down for yourself. I don't need to see that, because I see a lot of people that say they're interested in property. Interested is not committed. Two different things. I've seen a lot of interested people, but I see very few committed people, okay? So that's really important. Pay yourself first. Okay, this is one of my favorites, leverage, because this is where I've created a great deal of my wealth, through leverage. Now, as it says there, I love this, the power to earn more and more while working less and less. That makes you feel good just reading that out, I think, by having people or people's money work for you, okay? So all successful people use leverage, right? They borrow other people's money, they borrow other people's time, and they learn to leverage off that, okay? So if, for example, you are making 10% on an investment and it's costing you 6% from the bank, your margin's going to be 4%, okay? So that's really important. So leverage. So let me ask you a question. Are you working for your money, or is your money working for you? And a great answer for that is, and this is scary even for me, write down how long you can stop working. Write down how long you can stop working. Is it a week? Is it a day? Is it a month? Is it a year? It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer. But I want you to understand that wealth is measured in time. So I want you to be able to extend that, okay? You'll be able to extend that. So if it's a week, you might set yourself a target. You know, I want to work 2 months a year less. Write it down, please. As I said before, we want to make sure that we can help people replace their personal exertion income with their passive income. Now, one of the greatest minds of all time created a little formula on compound interest. When he was asked what was the most amazing thing he learnt in his life, he said the power of compound interest. Now, who am I to argue with Einstein? He came up with the rule of 72, and it is very, very interesting how it works. I've created a formula. I don't think we're going to have time here tonight, that links in with this spreadsheet. And no, we're not going to go into it tonight. But It is very powerful. So let's see how this works. I'll just give you the short version. So if you get a 7.2% capital growth, 72 divided by 7.2, it'll take you 10 years to double your money. Yeah. It's a little formula that I try and, again, teach my kids. If you get a 6% capital growth, I can't draw with this. You get a 6% capital growth, you'll double your money every 12 years. If you get a 5% capital growth, you can do the sums yourself. You double your money every 14 years. Got it? So that's really important, because I was talking before about how the government is devaluing our money. Now I'm talking about how you can double your money. Yeah. You've just got to get the right vehicle to double your money. So if you make a provision for 10 to 30% of what you earn, and plus you borrow money from the bank, and you can invest both of those and double it every 10 years, you're not only doubling what you save, you're doubling the whole sum. So if it's 200 you saved and the bank's giving you 800, that's $1 million that you're doubling every 10 years. You got it? So the opposite to that is leaving money in the bank, getting probably 4%. Half goes to the tax man, and the rest goes to inflation. Now you've got to remember, property has done over 11%. So where's that? I'll put that down here so you can calculate that yourself. Property has done 11%. So 72 divided by 11 is something like about 7 years, doubling every 7 years. Very, very powerful. The rule of 72. And you can see that's one of my rules of money, number 4. And it works a little bit like this. I just want to stop for a sec and say, a lot of people try and time the market. They ask me all the time, what's going on? Or Labor government's in, or interest rates are too high, or, the property prices are too high. They're trying to time the market, when to get in, when to get out. It's not timing the market. It's the time you spend in the market. You got it? So the earlier you start, and I say to my staff, to young people, get in there early. Make sure you get in there early and let time do its thing. But this is what happens. So I've just done, this is an example only. Property goes, it doesn't go in a straight line. It goes in booms and busts, booms and busts. But if Einstein's right and I can get a 7.2% capital growth rate, my money will double every 10 years. Yeah, I've just shown you that formula. Now, interest-only loans don't exist anymore, pretty much, after the global crisis. But for the purpose of this example, you've got an interest-only loan here today. So you've started with 200 grand, you've borrowed 600, and you've put it to work. And after 10 years, that's 1.2. Your loan is still 400, and your equity is 800. Pretty simple, isn't it? Pretty simple. But what investors do, they recycle their capital. They don't want to keep saving 200 grand. So what they do is at some point they revalue their property, and from there they go back to the bank and they say, well, my property's worth X now. Can I have my 200 grand that I put on the table ready for my next deal? Okay, so it's really important to understand that, and I call that recycling your capital. You don't have to go and save another 200. You can use that to go on to the next deal. So investors want to reuse their capital onto the next deal. The wealthy don't save money, they revalue and recycle. You got it? Revalue and recycle. They cheat a little bit. They take their capital back off the table so they can go on to the next deal. You might say, but Terry, I don't have 200 grand. Saving's a bit slow, and, I can't unlock equity. The sooner you start, the better. Don't wait for the perfect moment. I've had people with me, I would say 12 years plus, that are still waiting for property to come down. And this is how it works quickly. I've tried to make the presentation just very simple. So how it works, let's say today I'm going to give you 10% for cash, 10% for shares, and 10% for property, okay? The reality is shares and property probably do 10%. They give you the fruit from the tree, which is the dividend, and the tree grows. Property is the same. You get the rent and the tree grows, right? The rent is the fruit, and the property grows by probably 6%. So you do get 10%. But with cash, you don't get 10%. You cash 10%. You pay tax on that, so you give half to the government. Cross that out. With shares, you can leverage up. So at least with shares, I'm going to clear that. At least with shares, you can leverage up a little bit. They'll give you a margin loan, 50%. So you now got 200 grand working, 10%, 200 grand. You get a capital gains exemption if you held it for 12 months, 50%. So you only pay tax on half. Not bad. With property, the old safe as houses, the reason the bank will give you 90% is because they're very comfortable with it, not because we're good people, you know. So they give you the same investment, 100 grand. So 100 grand in each of them, 100, we doubled here. 100 grand here, we've borrowed 400 from the bank. We've now got 500 grand working. So we've made 50 grand, okay, on the same 100 grand that we've got working. This 50 grand is really important that we, I can see a little thing there, but this 50 grand, so we put our equity into, it becomes scalable because we can take it to the next deal, right? Put the 50 grand in property number one, the property then grows, and then we go and buy property number two, hopefully. We move the equity to property number two, property two grows, we move the equity to property three grows, and so on, right? You have a scalable model. You don't have to go and save the same 200 grand. You let time do its work. So every 10 years, property is doubling, your loan is getting devalued. It's easier to pay back the loan. For example, the first house I bought was brand new, 700 square metre block, brand new 3-bedroom home, Cirillo's home, for $99,000, house and land in 2000. Showing my age now. House and land, 99 grand. How easy would it be to pay a 99 grand loan now? Yeah, and that's inflation. That's what it does. Yeah. So what we're doing here, I just want to say what I said before, that the bank looks at cash flow. Cash flow is king. You know, your equity's in the property, the debt's there. Your value is $1 million, the debt's 800,000, your equity's only 200,000. They don't look at the equity, they look at cash flow first, okay? So if you want to leverage debt, you need to also increase your cash flow. Sometimes debt can be, well, not sometimes, all the time. The word mortgage comes from the French, and it has it comes from the word death, so mortgage to death. And I think that's what the banks do. You know, sometimes it's the rule of 72 in reverse. They're making money, your house is their asset, and vice versa, yeah? So the rule of 72 in reverse. So sometimes you put a monkey on your back and it turns into a big gorilla, and the bank loves you. And the bank will ring you 5 years in and say, I have a ripper deal for you. I'm going to take 0.5% off your 30-year loan. And you think, wow, that's fantastic, Mr. Banker, you're such a nice fellow. But what they're really doing is resetting the 30-year loan, right? So they've got customers for the future, and you'll be slogging away paying off debt. So it's really important that we learn to throw the monkey on someone else's back, yeah? The wealthy are really not scared of debt because they know that debt works for them. It's not bad debt, remember. There's a difference between bad debt and good debt. They're the champions at shifting the responsibility and throwing the monkey on someone else's back for someone else to pay that back, yeah? Let someone else pay the debt so you can leverage. So good debt, borrowing is crucial, and don't fear good debt is my message, your takeaway there. So the next time you're walking down the street and you see hundreds and hundreds of backs in front of you, they're all backs you can throw your monkeys on, yeah? Because it's going to get easier and easier for investors that do the right thing to be able to provide housing in this country, which is really sad. Melbourne will surpass Sydney over the next 20 years. I think it's probably done so already in a lot of cases. Yeah. Now, we do help people restructure debt and you know, try and teach them the difference between good debt and bad debt and pay off the bad debt quicker. Creating wealth, one of my fun areas which I love to do. You know, I get this question a lot. Do I go for cash flow? Do I go for capital growth? You know, it really depends on each person's circumstances. When I started, all I was interested in was capital growth. That's all I wanted. All I knew was I'll buy something for, back then, you can imagine, buy things for 150 grand and just work my buns off, and just, I know that I could pay 10 grand a month or 5 grand a month, and I'll get the loan back to 99. And all I wanted was a capital growth. I really didn't care if it was rented fairly low. As I've sort of matured a little bit through my path, I've worked on cash flow quite a lot. Okay, so getting, for a young person, who had a young fellow was mentoring, his dad brought him in, and he said, "What's the best way of me to create things?" I said, "Well, buy that shabby old house, get in there with your mates, fix it up, put a new kitchen in, do the gardens, create capital, because that's really important for you getting started." So cash flow is king, which I've shown you before, but capital gain is something that just gets you, it's like a plane flying to the clouds. You know, there's a lot of resistance. Once you get to that cruisy speed, it's nice, you know, with capital. Now, the one I like the best is opportunity, and this is some fun area that we have now, you know, where we can use things like options, and we use subdivisions and strata titles. We can not buy, but hold properties with options, hold them for 12 months, and the property value goes up. In the meantime, we're looking for someone to flip those properties. Or and we've done this for clients, where we buy a large block that might have subdivision capabilities there, that they've made a capital gain at the start. So opportunity is really exciting. I love that. I love working with people on that. Could be the fact that you put a granny flat on a big block, or you know, there's lots of ways. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, if I can, of a few properties that we've worked with in a moment after this slide, because I was talking about cash flow or capital. So as I said, this is just my opinion, I started off with capital, and I worked and I got to the summit, and then I changed direction and I started with cash flow, and that helped me get to the next level. And you might have to zig and zag depending on your circumstances. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, negative geared property, I'm going to save tax." That's not always right for a lot of people, because negative gear means money's coming out of your pocket, so you're going to work harder. So it's really important to understand that. So zig and zag between cash flow and capital. And then once you get to and become a sophisticated investor, and you can take a little bit more risk, there's all sorts of fun things. With vendor finance, with a client, what we did, he couldn't get the finance, so we approached the owner of the business. It was a cash flow business, and we said, will you fund it for us? And he said yes. He funded it for 3 years. At the 3-year cycle, let's say he bought it for $1 million. These are close figures, by the way. Let's say he bought it for $1 million. At the 3-year mark, we got it revalued, and the bank gave him a $1.3 million valuation. So at this stage, all he was doing was pretty much paying interest only for 3 years. He had gained $300,000 over that period, so quite exciting. So those sophisticated things, helping people with that, is what really floats my boat. Really does. Okay, so protecting assets, I haven't put anything on here. It is quite a complex area. All I'm going to say, look, if you're in a high risk category, let's say you're a doctor or an accountant or a real estate agent, maybe you should think about using a property trust to protect your assets. You know, so there's a corporate veil, protects you from creditors and predators, and it's tucked away. If, however, you're paying a lot of tax, you might be a salary earner or self-employed, or you're a low-risk business owner, and, you know, having properties in your own name is okay because they're protected by the bank in the short term anyway, or in the 10-year period anyway. I'm not going to go into that tonight. I cleared that slide on purpose, but I really love talking about that area as well. As I say, we're limited for time here tonight. You can see I love talking about this stuff, but I am conscious of your time. Okay, here's some gems. Create wealth. This was actually a case that we did. So, you know, if you like buying older properties and you like fixing them up like I do, we just fixed up one which was derelict, let me tell you. It was the old fish and chip shop in High Street. If anyone wants to go and have a look at it, I love fixing up old property. It gives me a real satisfaction. But this one was quite exciting. We spent a bit of money on each of the townhouses, and we're able, because of that, to rent them out for $100 per week extra, which gave us over 8 townhouses, $40,000 extra per year. Well, if you take that as an investor, $40,000, an investor will get a 6% return. So it's added $660,000 to the value of the complex. However, we only spent $320,000. So we've created an immediate capital gain. And this is what we do all the time. We love doing stuff like this, where we have 4 walls and we put a deal together. We've just done one where we had a doctor's practice, where we said, look, we'll spend $100,000 and we bring in, 5 or 6 doctors, and from there the property value goes up in value. So creating wealth is really important, and we love sharing those ideas. So this is not something you think, oh, well, that's beyond me. I love talking about this all the time, anytime. Targeting the right property. This is really important for capital growth, because if you don't get the right property, and a lot of times people will come back to me and say, hey Terry, I did what you said. I was on a camping trip at Buxton, and I went to the real estate window and I seen this property while I was eating an ice cream, and I bought it. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's good. How many people in Buxton? And this is only an example, and they might say, oh yeah, it gets up to 800 people in summer. No, that is not what I'm talking about. Do not buy properties while you're eating ice creams. That's 50% of the population, I think. And we're looking into the real estate window. You have to have some sort of criteria. This is my criteria. I like looking for clients' property that is close to schools, that have had good capital growth in the past, that have population growth of greater than 2.7. that has a residential vacancy rate of less than 2.9, that has a rental yield of better than 4.5, that is not lower than the median price range by 15% or higher than the median price range by 15%, because it could be a shabby shack or we're paying too much for it. And of course, being an accountant, I can't help myself. I always like it to be tax effective. So tax effective meaning that after 1985, we can write off the building for 40 years. They haven't got rid of that yet. And we can also write off although they have got rid of that, all the fixtures and fittings when you buy second-hand properties. Okay, so that was the hot spot, finding the right. So we do a lot of work. I'll go back to that. We do a lot of work trying to find the hot spot, the hot areas, by using criteria and algorithm to find where people are going to, and we've made a lot of money for people doing that. But then I want you to know about the sweet spot as well. Let me bring up that old slide that I brought up, the sweet spot that I referred to. I said to you before that properties go in cycles, booms and busts, booms and busts. And I'll just use the same slide. So the sweet spot is the downturn, okay? The downturn. Now, can you just think of, in the last 10 years, 3 or 4 downturns that have happened? You can put it in the chat box if you'd like. 3 or 4 downturns that you can think of in the last 10 years. We can think of one just recently, 2 words, Dan Andrews. We had the global crisis, we had the COVID, we've had the 13 interest rate rises. So it's understanding that not only picking the hot spots, which are areas that people are flocking to, and infrastructure is being built around there, and schools and supermarkets and that, they're the hot spots, but also the sweet spots. Get ready for the sweet spots. They will come every 3 to 4 years. It doesn't mean that property will get cheaper, because as it comes back, it always comes back higher than the cycle before. That's what I find, okay? But, if you are waiting, get ready for a little sweet spot. Here's a property that we did only recently. It had 12 townhouses. I'm just going to use this as an example. 12 townhouses is what I'm trying to say. And we thought, we looked at the area, which was Essendon, 16 minutes from the city. We're quite excited about that. Beautiful luxury townhouses, 3 levels. So we pushed that really hard to our clients. We thought this is not going to come again. It was when COVID hit and the prices were quite good. One of our clients have sold their 4-bedroom. It was a 4-bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 car parks at a gross ROI of 4.2%. Now you've got to remember this was only sold. It was only purchased in March 21. Right now, I'm not a seller, so I don't encourage people to sell real estate. But if they want to sell, I'm just hopeful that I've done the right thing and steered them in the right direction. So he sold that just recently to another one of our clients because I still feel that it's got good value at 1.250. So he's taken a capital gain in just over 2 years of $205,000. Let me ask you a question. How long in business do you have to work on that little treadmill, tuck away the money, pay the tax if you can, and get that $200,000? Yeah. So there is two years and a bit. Very excited about that. I also hold one of those in there myself. So we don't just say to people, go and buy. We do what we say we're going to do. If we say to the client, this is a good investment, we want to be in there as well. Here's another one. These two are partners, these clients, and they bought 2 properties in Mickleham, right? They were brand new off the plan, which is always a little bit scary, but we knew that Mickleham, we did all those checks with schools, infrastructure. Now you can't touch Mickleham, but the blocks are getting smaller and smaller if there's any left. You can see that's a 447 block, which is decent by Melbourne standards. Brand new home. It was a 5-bedroom home with a theatre. Purchased for $557. That includes stamp duty. And it's just valued at December 23 at $740,000. So I think it'll go more than that, $182,000. Now you've got to remember they bought 2 of those. So these guys are hard workers, $364,000 between them just tucked away into their nest egg, whilst they probably spent 5 hours a month looking after it. That's what I talk about, leveraging time. Okay, here's my area, beat the tax man. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. I think the tax in Australia is ridiculous. So anytime I can save tax for people, I love doing it. There's 4 areas here that I just want to quickly concentrate on. I've already talked about 1, recycle your capital. I think I've done enough on that. But when you want to pay less tax, you don't have to sell property. You only pay tax when you sell property. So it's a bit obvious. So that's one of them. Negative gearing I'll talk about. Investing in business real property, okay, which is really important, and buying property with your self-managed super fund. Just very briefly. A good old Kerry Packer, anybody who does not minimise their tax wants his head read. Truer words were never said, and he was a great man. So let's go to now I realised I put the wrong tax rates up, but you get the idea. It's actually now 49%, including Medicare. I had 47. They've changed the tax rates 3 times this year. So you'll get the idea. So 49%, not 47. But we get hit with the slaughter rate, for working harder. We've got to tip the tax man half our income once we get over the 180 grand, roughly. So, we need to do something about it. Investors pay less tax. They get great advantages through capital growth, which even those people I just showed you before, if you sell a property you've held for 12 years, for 12 months, you pay 50% tax on 50%, not on 100%. You get the 40-year write-off. You get the fixtures and fitting write-off. So that they use those advantages, those loopholes, if you like, which are still loopholes, to their advantage. Okay. I'm just conscious of time. So if I can say, look, Mr. Client, with some smart strategies, we're going to get your tax down from not 47, 49 cents, where every second day you're hitting that alarm clock, to every third day. Let's start a strategy on that, and that's what I love doing. there's going to be changes to those tax rates. Now, a lot of people don't love super. I think it's had a bad rap because the government can't keep their little fingers off it, and rightly so. But I still think superannuation should be one spoke to your wheel. I really do. And I'll tell you why. It's the only investment vehicle that we can create wealth with zero tax. No tax. You heard me right. People say to me, well, what do you mean no tax? So if you're over 60, so if you buy property, so the old days we could buy and borrow through a self-managed super fund, which is basically a trust. And they changed the rules where you have to set up a little bear trust. You set up a little bear trust as well. Okay, so basically at the end of the day, once you buy the property, and the bank loans you the money through the bear trust, and it sits there and does its thing, and you're contributing to super and paying off the loan, and let's say 60 comes around fairly quickly, we can start an allocated pension, and from that allocated pension, once you start that, you sell your property and pay zero tax, not 10%, not 15%, zero tax. Okay, so it's quite lucrative at the moment. You can even do it like, and this is what I've done for myself and many clients, where your business can buy that building and you pay rent to your super fund. So at the moment, you're limited by $27,500 that you can put in your super. But let's say, for example, you're renting and you're paying $100,000 a year to your business property. And that's bolstering your super fund by $150,000 a year. So superannuation, don't discount it. It's tax-free. Doesn't get better than tax-free. Forget everything else tonight. I've given you a tax-free strategy. I've given you two, actually, because as I said, investors don't sell property. They just roll their capital. Yeah, they roll their capital next year. And you might say, well, that's a bit silly. They're going to have to sell sometime. No, you don't, because when you go up to the pearly gates one day, you can gift your property to your kids or to your family. And at the moment, which I'm a bit worried about later, but at the moment, there's no gift tax, all right? In super, it's a little bit different. In super, if you gift to a financial dependent, there's no tax. If you gift to a non-financial dependent, there is some tax. So you've got to be careful with that. Yeah. So as people get older, we say, you might want to start taking money out of your super if you're going to gift it. Business real property, a lot of people don't know this is a very complex area, but let's say we do the same thing, because I said it's a trust, before it's a self-managed super fund. We're renting it from our business. So our business is over here, and Jane here is paying rent not to her super fund this time, to her investment trust, right? Now, because she's renting and it's in brackets, an active asset, there's a lot of good exemptions under the small business provisions where that property could be potentially tax-free, or if not tax-free, minimal. There are two requirements though. Your business needs to turn over under $2 million, or your net assets should be under $6 million, excluding superannuation and your residence. So net assets meaning take your loans off. So most people pass that test. So in a lot of cases, you can sell your business real property pretty much tax-free. So there's 3 areas: recycling your capital, moving it on to the next deal, self-managed super fund, tax-free, business real property, potentially tax-free. And if you're with us, I know we'll get it tax-free somehow. All right, no, I'm only joking. Right, so negative gearing, I haven't got the time tonight to spend a lot of time in this area. Only to say negative gearing, the term negative gearing means that the rent that you're receiving from the tenant is less than the interest that you're paying. Now, if you're paying 49 cents in a dollar tax, negative gearing is very important too. However, in a lot of cases, people fail because they buy too many negative gearing properties, or they get stuck on one negative gearing property or two. And what they do is, again, they're like the mouse on the treadmill for the next 28 years trying to pay off that loan, and they get nowhere. I truly believe in today's dollars, you need at least 3 properties on the go. Okay, so I'm sorry if people are thinking that one property is going to do it for. I don't think it is. Not in this. It certainly helps, but what it does, it reduces your tax. So what happens? The loss. So let's say, for example, I'll give you examples. There's 40,000 comes in as rent, and your interest and your other deductions are $60,000 in total. You've made a $20,000 loss. You take that off your income that's in from your personal exertion income, your wage, for example, and then you pay less tax, and you can get that tax back in your hand each week. We apply a 22Y variation, and that tax can come back in your hand each week. So it's really, by the time we do that, we realise that the monkey's on the tenant's back, and the tax man is helping us pay. And this year, you'll be surprised, in a lot of cases for, say, a $700,000 property, it usually works out the average $100 a week out of pocket, okay, for a negative gearing. Usually, it depends where you're buying and how much deposit and all sorts of things. But I think I drink more wine than that a week. So it really is important to understand that it is quite a comfortable thing, and we don't try and overstretch people. Everyone has a budget. Everyone has a limit. You know, I've shown you 2 properties we've created capital growth. One is $1 million and one was at $500,000. And we can buy properties anywhere from 500 now up to, you know, as high as you want to go. All right, so you let the tenant and the tax man hold the property with a little help from you, and you let time do its thing, and that's really important. When we do a property investment analysis, and we do that for every property, we work out the criteria, and we sit down, and we usually find it's your lunch money or your coffee expense that holds the property. Very comfortable. We want to set achievable goals. The last one, number 6, and as I say, I've tried to wrap this up within an hour, which is really hard to do. But know your market is really important, okay? So as I said to you before, I get asked every week an opinion. You know, what's the economy going to do? Will the interest rates come down? What do you think property will do? It won't come down. That is my answer. I expect they're playing funny games. I don't think with the amount of stimulus in the economy that inflation will go anywhere too soon, but they're already talking interest rate cuts. Now, I don't know why, maybe because it's an election year, but I expect a couple of interest rate cuts will put another cycle into property. And this may be, you know, your only chance to get in. You know, I truly believe that. As I say, there's signs there. You've got to be able to read the signs. We're not clairvoyants with a crystal ball, but we've got history, and we've got 30 years of doing this. We're not just dreaming this up overnight. What we're seeing at the moment is banks are very keen, all that money that's been printed, to loan it out. So there's increased borrowing power to people. Lower interest rates are coming. They're talking 2 interest rate cuts this year. Don't know why. A lack of new supply of housing. You've got Mr. Andrews, who's created, just dreamt up it's called a windfall tax, where they take 60% of any gain that you make for new greenfield land. I can't believe that got through. So there's lack of new supply. So farmers are going to say, bugger that, I'm just going to leave it there and put a few cows on it. You've got immigration levels. We've already hit our 27 mil. That was supposed to be the target for 2030. There's no infrastructure to house these people. Rent will continue to increase. So the flood of irrigation, the flood of immigration, and the fact that government is printing money, I expect that we will continue to grow with property. So it's a great time to think about getting in if you're not already in property. Okay, I talked about before, just to finish off, throwing the monkey. I spoke to a friend of mine the other day, and he said, look, I feel like I've got a troop of silverbacks on my back. Yes, debt, if it's on your back, it's not good. If you throw it on someone else's back, your life shouldn't change very much. But, you know, to finish off, I just want to say, if you buy a bad property and you get $6,000 worth of, we'll be really disappointed, $6,000 of extra cash flow that goes into your pocket. So I'm not talking about negative gearing now, I'm talking about positive cash flow gearing. That's $6,000 you didn't have. That could change your life. Maybe you go on a holiday, kids' education, whatever the case may be. It's $6,000 that's been released to your pocket. But imagine if we had bigger goals. So I said, start small, but have big goals. That's really important because one property is not going to cut it. So I'm not saying go all whole, but you know, you should have a bigger goal. Start small, have a bigger goal. So if you had one property per year, for example, potentially there's 90,000 extra cash flow released within 5 years. But more exciting is the fact that you could have a potential capital gain of 330,000. Now remember, I showed you that with 2 properties in that example, a real live example, 2 properties in less than 3 years. So I'm using very conservative figures here. So if you're talking about, look, I'm worried, I'm not sure about how to go about this, I can tell you that I'm an accountant, I'm a financial planner, I'm a real estate agent, and again, you'd say, so what? But if I tell you that I've got 30 years experience of doing this, I love doing this, and this is what I talk about, and I'm happy to hold your hand through the process, happy to, if you want to find your own property, that's good. If you want us to find the property, you know, it may save you making mistakes. That is there and available for you all. And I've put an offer out tonight, and I just, you know, just quickly thought about the value of this offer. I said, well, you know, if someone buys a property, they should have a valuation on that property every year. And we've put in this offer for at least the first 3 years, a property valuation done, access to the property club where we tips and ideas of exactly what we're talking about. 1 year subscription to Investar software, which is $990. We pay that for you. That allows you to search any property in Australia to understand return on investment, capital growth. You want to understand what the rent is in a particular street. How exciting is that to have that at your fingertips? You want to calculate the depreciation on a property. We'll show you how to use it. You get a guidebook for the complete guidebook of buying negatively geared property. That's something that we've printed. And I've put in there, if you want someone to mentor you, where we sit and we talk all things property. You might say, look, I want to buy a property over the next 6 months or 12 months. If you do, please put it in the little caption because we will get back to you. If you're thinking within the 6 to 12 months, either myself or one of my team will get back to you and just help you through the process. But this is where we sit and we understand, you know, your capacity to borrow. We understand what you're looking for. We understand your deposit. We do the property investment analysis. We talk about whether it's commercial. Commercial is more higher risk, but you get better cash flow. Residential is lower risk, but you get higher capital gain and lower cash flow. Right. So understanding all the different things and stuff that I wonder how many mistakes I've made through the years that I can bring to the table instead of you making mistakes, or instead of being impulsive, what a lot of people do, and buy that property when they're on holidays and feeling good. And sometimes it works. I've had one client who made $1 million in 12 months. It was the best I've ever seen. So I can't knock that, that's for sure. But in a lot of cases, it doesn't work. So the total value of what I've calculated there is about 5 Gs, you know, to sit one-on-one with 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, as long as it takes. And I'm saying, well, look, I just want to help people there's a lot of value there. I'll just cut it in half and say, look, if over the next 24 hours or even within the next hour, if you put it in the thing there, we'll honour that for you, okay, but only for this webinar, all right? So, look, I hope you've enjoyed that. It's a lot of stuff to get through, and it's hard to know what to leave in and what to take out, and I could talk about this till the cows come home. I really love talking about it. That's just a reminder of what we're offering, sorry. The thing is, the best suggestion I can give you is, if you are considering buying property over the next 2 to 3 years, you should start sooner than later. As I say, I'm not a clairvoyant with a crystal ball, but the signs are there that it's not going to get cheaper. And what else do we invest in? Leaving the money in the bank doesn't work. Blue chip shares, we might have Donald Trump sneezing and the share market corrects. You know, every investment has its advantages and disadvantages, but I don't see any like property. So with that, I'm going to let you go and get a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and thank you for your time. Hopefully you got something out of that, and this is not where it ends. Hopefully this is where it starts. Please take me up on giving you some help if that's what you need, because that's what I love doing. Thank you so much. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the other side. Take care.